Hi, this is George from Upfish, your marketing automation expert, and today I'm going to show you a workflow that will hopefully show you how to take LinkedIn job postings from Google and essentially enrich them. So with those LinkedIn job postings, we'll be able to find out the LinkedIn company URL of the company, the hiring manager's LinkedIn URL. From there, we'll be able to enrich that information to get their contact details. And we'll be able to use the job posting information on the actual LinkedIn post to create AI generated messages to hopefully improve that response rate. So the idea here, just like with any kind of automation similar to this, is that when people are going through a hiring phase, they're telling you a bit about their company, so the tech stack they use, their investment, their aims, their goals. But more importantly, it's also a trigger for the fact that they're growing. So it's great to be able to reach out to them. Now, this video, in fact, is going to be very different to any other video we've seen because I'm not building it from scratch. Rather, I'm showing you a finished product, and I'm going to jump in and explain that straight away. In order to do this video, I need to be able to make calls to the LinkedIn API, essentially. I want to be able to say, here is a job post URL. Please give me that information. And LinkedIn have crazy restrictive API limits. So if I show you an example here, I make a call to LinkedIn, it might work. 5 seconds later, it won't. And I won't be able to make a call for like another 7 minutes. And since Make don't have a batch function for API calls, it makes this very, very, very complicated. Which brings me on to the second point of interest. So if you're watching this video, thank you for watching, first of all, and I hope you like and subscribe. But also, I'm making this completely free. So if you go to my Gumroad, you can download this. The reason for this is because I'm not confident that this is a finished or polished enough product for me to charge money for. Just because of the workarounds I had to do in regards to the API function of LinkedIn, you need to be quite an expert at Make to get this to work, essentially. And I would not like to sell it just to experts. I like everybody to be able to at least have a go. So yeah, download for free. Bear in mind, it is free though. So if you can't get it working, don't email me asking for help because I'm not going to give it to you. I have no financial incentive. Also, don't give me a bad review. It's free. I'm already telling you it might not work for you. Probably won't work for you. But it's still a pretty cool experiment. So definitely give it a shot. So let's just jump in and I'll just show you what happens. First off, we make a search on Google. So in this case, we're making a search on site, linkedin.com/job/view. Okay. And then we have in as a mandatory field here, a mandatory search term, about the job. And I'm searching for Airtable. I'm also searching for marketing. So these are my keywords. And this is, I'm searching United Kingdom or Estonia, Portugal, United States. And it returns me actual people who are posting for jobs. If I remove this about the job part here, then you see we start getting all of this other stuff just related to jobs. You get those lists where it's like 2,000 people hiring in Lisbon. I found through my experiments that the best way to guarantee you're getting actual postings is to put in the about the job part here, because this is a part of every job description. So if I click on one at random here, we see here they're no longer accepting applications, but they always have this about the job section, which seems to be the best way, at least from what I can see, of getting the information we want. But we can see here when we get these links, yeah, we have a link here to the company's profile, which is pretty good for us in terms of enrichment. Sometimes we also get the hiring manager, which again, depending on what you want to achieve, could be pretty useful. And we also get information about the job. So this is the hope of what we're trying to achieve, and let's see if we can actually get it to work. So just like with any outbound campaign, I simply give it a name. I put the search field into my Airtable that manages all of my campaigns. I change the start page to 0, mark it as active. I change the type, and so this all means that at my starting point, I have an Airtable which is searching for records in my CRM for campaigns where I'm looking for active LinkedIn jobs. So I create a view here where I'm just looking for the type, LinkedIn jobs, and the search active. So that means the search field, it knows, is going to be to do with LinkedIn jobs. It's not going to be Apollo searches, or it's not going to be LinkedIn profile searches or Indeed searches. It keeps it to what I want. So I'll just run this module only to show you what it comes up with. My big face is in the way, so maybe I'll move this over here for the rest of the video. Is that okay? Feels a bit weird. I think it's okay. So we get the search field. Great, that's what I want. So the next stage, just like anything else, is we're doing a search field and start equals start page. So this is just going to return us the results. So search fields is the result here, start page. I just put in 10 as a random number. And we can see here in the data, we've got a lot of HTML results. If I do a quick search here for jobs and search down, here we go. We start seeing we're getting some LinkedIn results for job postings. So here we have one, linkedin.com/job/view/sales solution consultant pre-sales at Taulia. This one here, coaching systems associate at Movement Labs. So straight away, this is good news. It means it's working. And we can also see there's a constant schema to how LinkedIn posts their URL. So it's always job title at company. Job title, audience analyst at company. So we start making our rejects later. That's cool to have. Now, another thing that you might want to consider here is that within search results, you can add in before and after dates. So in terms of what Google accepts, you can add in before 2024 March 20th, and then after 2024 March. So if you want to make sure that you're not just getting the same results all over, I would recommend changing the URL search to something like this, where you encode the before and after dates to something, which means if you run it on every week, you're guaranteed different results. But this is, again, this is more for expert level, because I'm pretty certain I've typed this out wrong. So not something I've tested. I just put it in before the video, but this is how the schema works. It's before : year, month, date, and after : year, month, date. It's just where in the URL it goes. I need to triple check, but either way, that's something that you can have a look at and try and improve upon. So anyway, we get the HTTP results, and we update our search records just like any other campaign where we use Google to increase the start page from 40 to 50. So this is what this next part does. It's an Airtable, just increase the start page by 10. Then what we have here is getting the LinkedIn links. So this is a regex we have in place that is essentially looking for those things in the HTML data that we saw earlier. So if we put in, for example, the data we have here, I'll just copy and paste all of this. It could take a while. It's a lot of data. So I'll Control C this in, and then here I'll run this module only. So the data comes out, and then it we see here is we're returning the LinkedIn links. So I'll just copy this one as an example. But basically, it's trying to essentially group them all together. So we have one here for senior associate Anfo. Well, I'll just expand this a little bit. Coaching system associate at Movement Labs. Sales specialist at Home, medical device, Texas robotics. Project onboarding coordinator at Bracelet. Great, it's perfect. Next, we have a tool, which essentially, it's kind of unnecessary because you can see here, there's only 10 results. But sometimes, if for instance, if you're using Bing, you might get the same result more than once on a page. So all that this tool is doing is it's looking at those links and it's grouping them by their value. So anytime the value is the same, it will group it together in a key and a text. So that way, although the text might have multiple entries, the key will always be one. So that's all that's going to do. All right, so then we come into here, and the next part is a regex. Essentially, it's going to get the company name. So as we saw before, all of the URLs follow the same pattern of job title at somewhere. So here, for example, if I just copy this, and I run this module only with this text, press OK, it is going to give me the job, solution consultant pre-sales at Taulia. So now I have job title and I have a company name, which is also pretty useful. You can add in an extra regex here to essentially replace hyphens with spaces as well, if you need. I haven't needed to use it yet, but again, I don't think that this is 100% as good as it can be. So if you think it could be put in to improve, definitely would recommend it. So the next stage is to get the job links. So what do I mean by that? If I just move this here, we had this as a text. So obviously, if I just expand this is one of the links we got, http linkedin.com, blah, 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 blah. And then we have here this amp SA something. So if I open this up in an incognito window, so I'm not logged into my LinkedIn anymore, you'll see what the effect of this is. If I put it in as such, more often than not, it will say page not found. It will ask me to link or to log in. I take out all of this extraneous stuff. It comes up to the information. So what we need is just a simple regex to essentially get rid of that extra information here. So that's all that regex is going to do. So if I copy this regex here, it just removes everything before, sorry, it removes everything after the question mark equals and amp. So if I run this module only, put in the information, what I have here now is a full URL, which is we just established I can actually access. So what happens next? Next is a tool to put it into sleep for 1 minute. So ideally, this would actually be closest to like 240 seconds. But I have to put it down lower when I'm testing it because I'm pretty impatient and I can't wait that long. What is the function of this sleep? So as I mentioned before, if I take this URL and I make a search job request, I run this module only, I put it in, let's see what happens. I get a 2429 request, and that happens a lot. So this is another reason I'm making this free, because I think someone else smarter than me can figure this out, and hopefully they'll tell me what I did wrong, and then I can make a new video about it. But essentially, because it's LinkedIn, they don't want people scraping their websites. They don't want just random bots coming in, taking information. So they will put up this 429. You've made 2 minute requests pretty liberally. If you want to get that 200 result, it means that you can really only make a request, like in my experience, at least once every 10 minutes. So this is why we have a tool here, puts a sleep in it for 60 seconds. And then in the settings here, what I've done is I've evaluated all states as errors except for 200. So if I don't get that 200 result, okay, what's going to happen is it's going to go to an error. And this error is a break. So what's going to happen here, it's going to wait 9 minutes. And it's going to retry running it again, and it will retry running it again up to 3 times. Although that is quite a lot because it just makes it makes the scenario run just interminably long. So basically, you have two basic solutions in front of you here. One is to accept that out of every 10 results you get, you're only going to get the information for like 1 or 2 of them. Or you can say, I want to get the information for all 10 and I'm willing to wait. Instead of one of these scenario runs taking like 3 minutes, I'm willing to wait for like up to 45 minutes to make sure that it keeps on retrying and reprocessing until it gets it right. But either way you do it, what it's going to do is it's going to make this request and it's going to give you a whole bunch of data. As we see here, we've got a 429 error. If you want to see what it looks like in practice, I will come back to one of the ones where I've successfully run it. Okay, will it let me look at the information? Yeah, okay, here we see we have a 200 result, so it's managed to go through the filter that I have in place there. It's looked for this job information audience analyst at PetSmart, and it's returned me a whole bunch of information, okay? So out of that information, what do I find useful? One is turning that into text. So we have a simple text parser module, HTML to text, and it's essentially turning it into, well, essentially all of you saw the HTML data into text. Again, you can add in another text parser here to remove all of the extraneous stuff because, at least as I understand it, the really only important parts you need here, and well, okay, I'll come into that a bit later. So this turns it all into text. We've got something to work with here. The next step is to find a recruiter. Okay, in this case, it didn't find one. Sometimes jobs don't have recruiters listed. Then we want to find a company and we want to get the job description. So I'll come back into the diagram to show you the regex for that. So after we have all of that information and we turn it into a text, we have here a text parser that's going to try and find a recruiter. So on the page, if there is a linkedin.com/in/profile, it's going to get that information. So for example, here we see there is not listed a recruiter. So I'm not going to be able to get a recruiter from the head of demand generation and marketing at Airtable. From another job that we might have looked at a different company, which comes up, and there is a hiring person. So in this case, it will find a hiring person. In the other cases, it won't. In both cases, it will find this about us data and of course this company name. So if it finds the recruiter, great. If not, I tell it to continue the execution of the route, even if the module finds no matches. After that, I'm trying to find a company. So similar to the recruiter, I'm asking it to bring in linkedin.com/company/ this time. And in effect, what you'll see here is a lot of results. So if I come back to this page here, we have Fab City Foundation linked here once, linked here one here at the bottom. If I press show more, some other companies, some other ads on the side, you'll see companies advertised here. Sometimes there'll be more, companies similar to this. Sometimes in the skills section, there might be ones. So you might actually find that there's quite a lot of results that come out from this. So again, if I come back to a successful run into the get company we see here. So this is for PetSmart. We've got one for PetSmart, another one for PetSmart, but we've also got ones for something called Litimetry, Shutterfly, FlexJet, Circle K. There's a whole bunch of them. But having run this a few times, always the ones that come in the first 3, 4 are the ones of the recruiting company. It's always been the case. The only problem is sometimes, because I haven't got the rejects down right, the first result is always bad. But the second, third, fourth is always good. So that's why we have a filter here. And essentially what I'm saying is I want the I number to be equal to, well, in this case it was 1, but I've since changed it to be equal to 2. So here I is 1, here I is 2. So I've changed the filter now to always be fallback match, the second option. So I come back to the diagram. What does that look like in practice? Here we have get company. It gets the company, gets all of the results. And we have a filter that says the second result passes it through. So we're not processing all 100 different companies. So let's take a stop. At this point, in theory, we have the text from the HTTP, which means we have all the about us. Again, optionally, you might want to add in another text parser. I have noticed that there are certain things here. So, for example, there are certain markers that you could possibly make a text regex to just get the about the job bit. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I think it's safer just to keep it all in the turn into text. But in any case, this is the job description. If available, we have the recruiter URL, and if available, always available, we have the company URL. So the next stage is to create an email. So similar to my Indeed one, I have some simple instructions to say, hi, I'm George. I'm not applying for a job. These are my skills. My theory is that people who are hiring will be broadly interested in discussion about this. So I just have a rule here. What I want the GPT to do is decide if the company is worth contacting based on the info. If they are worth contacting, go ahead. If not, don't bother. If it is go ahead, then waste a few more GPT credits for me, please. Give me a justification for why I should go ahead. Write me an icebreaker, so just like a few lines at the beginning to introduce myself, why I'm getting in contact. Write an outro part to the email with my CTAs, my YouTube link and my tidy count. If appropriate, include examples of clients I've worked with in the past. I give it some information on my general skills, some extra notes. Importantly, I'm not applying for a job. They're expanding their headcount. Suggest a desire for growth or a strategic shift in operations. As such, might be space for me to work for them. I'm telling it to output the JSON like this. Go ahead or don't bother. Justification with a reason. Icebreaker with copy. Email sign off. So the second part of the email with copy. And then as always, every time I do a JSON, I tell it never deviate from the JSON. Don't write this before or after. Keep the email short, a little intriguing. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can add in here to make it good. Because again, I'm not actively using this, so I haven't really put a lot of effort into making this GPT LinkedIn perfect, rather just something that will work for the time being. And then you might want to add in some extra messages. So you might put in a user of an example from a previous job description, and then an example that the system should give as an output. And then you can do that as many times as you want. So I've got it a few times here. And then finally, the last message is the user. I put in here 14S1, which is this one here. So this is the job title, at 14S2, which is the company name, and then the text, the job description. So this is the job title, the company name, the job description. It all processes, and then it goes to a JSON where it tells me whether it will basically accept what I want or not. So if you want to know what that looks like in practice, again, all of these, don't bother. Brilliant. So here we have one, don't bother going ahead. Why? Because the job title is an audience analyst at PetSmart, which suggests a role based on data analysis, not insights, doesn't align with me. Obviously, I need to update, or I do, because that should be something I'd reach out for. But this is the point of testing it. So we can update. But essentially, assuming that it does work, and it does say go ahead, we filter for that here, just before we have a router. Okay, so this thing here I'm wiggling around, you can ignore this. As I said, this is just an alternative example of how you might do the original HTTP call, but I've disabled this route so it doesn't run. So here we have a filter next to say go ahead equals go ahead. So it's not saying don't bother, it says go ahead, and it comes into a router. So at this point you might be thinking, whoa, now it gets really, really complicated, but it actually doesn't. These three branches here are all identical. It's really only the branch at the top which interests us, because essentially this is what's happening. The first router is, does fallback match exist? And this fallback match is number 31. which is get a recruiter. So as I mentioned before, sometimes the LinkedIn job profiles will have a recruiter URL and sometimes they won't. If they do have one, I want to contact them directly. If they don't have one, I need to do an alternative thing. So we'll follow the top branch first and then I'll show you the others. So assuming that a LinkedIn recruiter exists, we make a request to Prospio. Okay, and what we're doing is we're just essentially saying here is the person's URL. So the way that Prospio works is that you can just enter in a URL and it'll give you back that information. So if you want to see what that looks like, okay, and we see here it returns some information. So if I was a recruiter, I would know my first name, my last name, my full name, my job title, my LinkedIn profile, summary, skills, work experience, education, languages, current job information, and more importantly, the email. Whether it's a catch-all, the company information, the things I want. So the next stage is another router. The reason for that is sometimes an email won't be found. It might be the case that it hasn't found an email. But if it has found an email, the next step is to validate that email. An API call I make to Bounceless. So basically I ask it this email address, does it work? Pass a response. So if I run this module only, now, if I run this module only, I've moved my giant head on this video again just to hide out my API key from you prying eyes. But anyway, it's just a normal verification email. It takes the email, it tells me the result. Is it unknown? Is it valid? Is it a catch-all? Whatever. In this case, apparently it doesn't know what my email is. It says it's unknown, which is great for me in terms of my privacy. But again, we have to have another router. So assuming the filter is valid, we will search the records. Okay, this is where it gets very simple again. We just search the records on the Airtable. Does this person already exist? I don't want to be emailing someone I'm already in contact with. As unlikely as it sounds, it's just one extra operation out of many we might be running, so it doesn't matter. We have a filter here for the total number of bundles. So we will say, if it doesn't exist, if no bundles return from searching the email across my database, then we'll create a new record. This is a pretty straightforward one. It's just, filling out the information we have from Prospio into the Airtable. So first name, last name, who they work for, blah, 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 blah. And then we send a draft email. So the draft email, very straightforward again. We take the email address that we get from Prospio. We put in hi, first name, icebreaker, plus the email sign off. So just like with my Indeed automation. And if you haven't seen that, check out the video. It's very, very, very good. Then also like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, icebreaker will be something like, hello, I've noticed that you have recently been hiring for an automations person who's a specialist in Airtable. This suggests to me that you might be interested in the blah, 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 whatever. It just creates the email, puts it in a draft, and then sends me a Slack message. So every morning I get a message to say, you have 5 messages in the draft to approve, or 10 messages, or 20. So it's just a way of making sure that I stay honest. Okay, so this is the ideal scenario of what would happen. Now, if there is no hiring manager, obviously we can't get an email. If it does not find an email, of course we cannot validate it. And if the email is not valid, we cannot add to Airtable, which is when we have these branches, which are all identical. So I'll just go through one of them. It really doesn't matter. What we're doing here, first off, is enriching a company. They tagma, and I'm basically putting in the data as the URL of the LinkedIn company we found earlier in order to enrich that information. And I get some data. Company. Yes, okay, great. So I've got some information here. So I have the URL of the company. Well, I already knew that. I got the name though this time, the actual name rather than what I've passed as a name. Got an about page, the amount of employees they have, where they're based, number of locations, the website, which is really what I want. I want the domain in order to make sure all subsequent calls are good. So I've started already to get some interesting information. I don't know much, if I'm honest, I don't really know much about the tagma. Maybe there's an option for me to ask for employees of a certain rank. That's something, again, another reason why I'm giving it for free. I really need to look more into the tagma and see what it's capable of. But assuming that they aren't able to say, give me all of the employees of this particular LinkedIn company, the next thing I need to do is a call to Apollo. So this is a simple mixed people search. What I'm doing is I'm using the domain I got from Prospio, and I'm saying, check instantly.ai as a company. I want everybody who's an owner, C-suite founder. I want certain seniority, certain departments or sub-departments. I want 2 people per page. So if I run this module only, what do we get? Let's try Microsoft.com. We see here in the breadcrumbs, we've got the department, we've got the management level, everything we want. plus also the domain name of Microsoft.com. And in people, yeah, we found someone, Mudsum Sorep, who apparently is the director of Microsoft living in Bangladesh. Okay, great. Thank you for that, Apollo. But in any case, I've now found, ideally in most companies, 2 people who I could possibly contact from this company who have been hiring and posted something on LinkedIn. So next, pretty straightforward. I have an iterator to separate those 2 people. And then because Apollo doesn't give me an email address, I make the same call I make to Prospio here, but this time with the information from Apollo. Prospio, I tell it, here's the first name, here's the last name, here's the company name. Give me an email address. If the email address exists, it goes to the validate, which is the same one we saw for bounceless. Here we have a filter. If the email is valid, search the records, create a record, create draft, send to Slack. So again, it looks from the outside to be a deeply, deeply, deeply complex workflow, but it's not really. The only issue, well, there's a few issues. Number one is the original. Let me move my big head out the way again. So let me take a step back. I'm giving this away for free. You should be happy. This is great news, I think. Just download it, try it out, see if you can improve upon it. You definitely can improve upon it. And if you can, please let me know. Certainly, if you are a content creator of some kind or just a very confident young person, not even a young person, don't know why I said that, just a confident person, you can shoot me a message and I'll be more than happy to put you on my fantastically popular YouTube channel to demonstrate your genius. But yeah, if I was you and I was doing this from scratch, the first thing I'd do, I would figure out how to improve the campaign field here that I'm searching for so that I include the before and after dates. And then the main thing, I would figure out either how to use proxies within Make in order to make sure that every time I'm making a HTTP call, it's coming from a different address so that LinkedIn don't massively limit the amount of calls I can make. Or I would figure out a more elegant solution than I have, where I just have a sleep function and a break function that essentially puts me in this eternal spiral of like, all right, this is a 200 code, good to go. This is 429, put it into break, retry after 15 minutes, over and over and over, which makes my scenario run for a very, very long time. So, I mean, at the very least, I'd figure out the right numbers. 9, honestly, I just picked it at random. It could be 7 minutes, it could be 17. I'm not sure. Then the other thing I would do to improve this is this text parser function here, which is getting the job description data. There's definitely a way that will reduce the word count. And then after that, it's just a case of looking to see if there is a better tool. I'm using a combination of Prospio, Bounceless, Apollo, and Datagma, which is insane. I'm pretty certain if I use, for example, Peeper Data Labs, I could just use one tool for all 4 of these functions. The problem is I don't have a license for Peeper Data Labs, whereas I do have essentially a free license for Apollo, Bounceless, and Prospio. So this is what makes sense to me with my tech stack, but I appreciate that is not, with all probability, the easiest tech stack for everybody. So that's how I would approach things if I wanted to make it complicated. Otherwise, the easiest way to use something like this is to essentially get rid of all the text parsers, all of them except for getting the LinkedIn links, and then essentially put those LinkedIn links into an Airtable where you can manually just say, all right, here's 10 jobs, check them out. Here's 100 jobs, check them out manually. Or a mid-easy, sort of between the very easy and the very hard, would be to get rid of this AI element and just say, all right, I have a recruiter. That's what. If I don't have a recruiter, ignore it. If I have a recruiter, put them in an email like Lemlist or Woodpecker and just put them in a generic outbound. So there's a few different ways to do it. Again, a few apologies on my half. One, this was not a build along, just because, again, if I had to keep on building along and running these LinkedIn API requests, it would take me like 2 hours to record this video, and I just do not have the time. I'd also apologize because the second apology is that this is not, in my opinion, a finished 100% bulletproof ready automation as normal. But having said that, I still think it's pretty cool. And I think that if you are, willing to play around with it, there is a lot you could achieve with this. And there's certainly a lot of value. If I come back to the Google search results, this is just me searching for like Airtable, UK, Estonia, Portugal, United States. There's 300 people who are posting on LinkedIn to say, we need someone who's good at Airtable. If you play around with these URL possibilities, I think there's quite a lot of stuff that is interesting that you could find. So where does that leave me? Well, it leaves me with, I really hope you liked the video. Once again, if you do, like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your sisters, tell your brother. Download this. Again, it's free. The quid pro quo, of course, is once you download it, I'll have your email address. I will send you 2 follow-up emails, probably offering you like a minor discount. Why did those balloons come up? I have no idea. Anyway, I'll offer you 2 emails, probably offering you a discount in order to incentivize you to buy one of my other products. You can ignore them. You don't have to buy anything. Just please don't mark me as spam, because I'm giving you something for free and you're marking me as spam. This is negative for me. But anyway, whatever. It's the end of the video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.